Hey folks, Eric Smith here, radio voice of the Toronto Raptors, NBA host and analyst with Sportsnet. I want to shout out my man Chris and 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Even though I know, Chris, you're not a Toronto sports guy, you've got those allegiances to the Detroit-Windsor area, the Pistons, the Red Wings, the Tigers, and for some reason the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm still trying to figure that one out, Chris. Why'd you drop the Lions? Why'd you drop the Lions, Chris? There's got to be a reason there. We'll have to fill everybody in on that another time, I suppose. But again, check out 30 Minutes Live with CDP every Wednesday and Friday. It's on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook Live, you name it. Chris is everywhere across all platforms. And if you just want to check out the audio version, maybe you're going out for a walk and you just want a podcast or something, you can get it on Apple, Google Podcasts as well, Spotify, Anchor FM, and Radio Public. So again, I told you, Chris is everywhere, and I'm hoping that I can be a guest on the show at some point this summer as well. Wednesdays and Fridays, 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Check it out.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Live with CDP, the morning edition on this Wednesday, September 29th at 10 o'clock in the morning. Hard to believe it's almost October. So anyways, guys, I am wearing my Eagles hat. I know the Eagles got killed by Dallas 41-21 on Monday Night Football. So on to Kansas City next, which is not going to be an easy game this Sunday at 1 o'clock at the Link. I'm looking forward to my podcast this morning. Eric Smith, the longtime radio play-by-play voice of the Toronto Raptors and NBA analyst for Sportsnet. And he's also the host of Smith and Jones talk show on the Fan 590 every Monday to Friday from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So just bear with me, and hopefully Eric will be on shortly. Eric's extremely busy right now because the Raptors training camp opened up yesterday as well. So yeah, and you can also follow Eric on Twitter, and he's also on Instagram as well and Facebook, but you can check him out at Eric_Smith. And like I said, I'm looking forward to speaking to Eric. And also you can check out Smith and Jones on the Fan 590 in Toronto daily from Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. on the Fan 590 in Toronto as well. So I'm really looking forward to speaking to him about his career in radio and also being involved with the Toronto Raptors and being there. He's done color analyst with the Raptors and also play-by-play, and he's also done some TV work as well. So, and yeah, I was just mentioning this earlier while we're waiting for Eric. The Eagles are back home this Sunday at the Link, Sunday, October 3rd, a 1 o'clock kickoff against Pat Mahomes and the defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs. Both teams are 1-2, and both teams are desperate for a win. So as for the Eagles game, guys, I'm going to just say this. I think oh, okay, I just heard from Eric. He's just going to be, he's just trying to have, we're just having some technical difficulties. Hopefully Eric will be on in a few minutes. He just sent me a message, guys. So while we're waiting for Eric to come on, I'm going to just play a little video clip. And just 1 second, I'm going to just play a little clip of the Raptors winning the NBA championship in 2019 against the Golden State Warriors. And hopefully we can get Eric on here shortly. Just 1 second, guys. And we'll just play this clip for you guys. And I'm going to just...
And then again, Toronto.
Oh, I think Eric's on. Oh, there he is. Okay. I'm going to remove that. Just give me a second, and I'm going to bring on the radio voice of the Toronto Raptors, and we'll talk some Raptors hoops and maybe some of his Buffalo Bills who came off an impressive win against Washington Sunday as well. So just 1 second, guys. I'm going to bring on the voice of the Toronto Raptors, Eric. Good morning, Eric. How you doing?
I'm great. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate this.
No problem. I apologize. I'm a couple minutes late. Technical issues. I normally like to think that I'm technically inclined, but it wasn't allowing me to open the link from Instagram. So I had to open up the browser, and we figured it out. So am I okay like this? Do you need landscape, or are we all right like in this mode, or how's it looking?
No, you're fine. You're good.
Right, perfect.
Can you hear and see me okay?
Absolutely.
And just for you, I was going to use the Scotiabank Arena, but I figured we'll use Highmark. I keep calling it New Era Field for you since your Bills won on Sunday against Washington.
I appreciate that. And fingers crossed for another victory this weekend.
I guess you're taking on what, Houston, I believe.
Yes.
That should be a gimme game, but sometimes those gimme games can be difficult too.
Yeah, well, we saw that even in week one. I don't know. Some people might not think that Pittsburgh is a gimme, but at the same time, I think Buffalo coming off the season that they had last year, I certainly thought it was a gimme. They were certainly favored in that game, but it's a cliche or otherwise. You know what, Chris, and all sports fans do. If you don't take care of business, if you don't do the right thing, if you make too many mistakes in any sport, heck, even in life, you're not going to win then. So the Buffalo Bills were not on their their A game in week one, and certainly they've bounced back nicely the last couple of weeks. But you're right, they gotta make sure they continue to kind of do the right things and take care of business, because you don't want to let one slide against an opponent that I think we all would agree is inferior, at least on paper, but you got to play it out between the lines.
That's why they play the game as well. You're right. I was talking to Sal on Twitter the other day about Josh Allen's release, and I even noticed it as a fan that the last couple games, his release has been a little bit quicker, like it was last year. I guess it was at around 2.87 seconds. Sal was telling me.
I didn't realize it was that quick, or I didn't crunch the numbers that much. I think I'm just going by the eye test, and I often do that in a lot of sports. Not that I'm not a numbers guy and I don't see the value in numbers and analytics and everything else, but at the end of the day, these two things I don't think fail us, whether we're broadcasters or fans or coaches or players or scouts or otherwise. You kind of often get that sense just watching somebody, if they're, and again, going back to maybe using the scouting component of this. Not that you can't or shouldn't be looking at all of the metrics and all of the things to judge and evaluate a player, but at the end of the day, I really do think it comes down to that eye test and to that gut. And I think that Allen didn't look great, didn't look as precise. His decision making maybe not as great in that first game against Pittsburgh. Certainly a dominant victory in week 2 over Miami, but still I think Allen had another level to get to, and a lot of people were saying 35-0. And it still wasn't a great game overall, at least for the offense and at least for certain members of the offense. And then I think Allen kind of proved himself that much more with the type of performance that he put in against Washington. And again, as I say, hopefully rolling that success and that momentum now through into this game against Houston this weekend.
I was going to say, and he got everybody involved. Cole Beasley had 11 catches, got Diggs involved. Emmanuel Sanders has been a nice addition, replacing John Brown. My only concern with the Bills, I'm an Eagles fan, and I'll bring them up in a minute. But with the Bills is a running game. I still don't know. I like Zach Moss. I think he's a big physical type running back, but I'm not sold on Singletary. And I still think the Bills need to have a little more of a running game like the Cleveland Browns with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be a difference in the playoffs right there, because I'm still old school.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that is something that even short-term and long-term, as much as you want to, lean on the arm of Josh Allen and the talent that he has as a quarterback and as a thrower, and even as a runner himself, I think that you're a better balanced team and a more dangerous team when you've always got that weapon of the running game too, because it keeps the defenses honest that much more, where they're maybe not able to pack in on your receivers as much. Maybe they can't, they got to switch up their coverage. They can't throw 2 guys on Diggs. They've got to respect the running game. So I think you do need to run the ball. I would agree with you a little bit more. Selfishly speaking, and not that any of your viewers or listeners will care about my fantasy football team, but selfishly, not only just as a Bills fan wanting to see them succeed, but I've got Singletary on my fantasy team. My running backs are horrendous on my fantasy team. So I want Singletary to do a little bit more. But honestly, at the end of the day, who cares about fantasy? The reality being, me being a Bills fan, I don't care if it's Moss, Singletary, or it's both of them together as a 1-2 punch. I think that they've shown some spurts this year, and I'd like to see a little bit more of it, as I say, to take some of that pressure off of Allen and also to keep those defenses honest. And I think that's, as I said, not just short term, but long term, thinking about, the longevity of a career for a quarterback and making sure that he's not taxing that arm too early in the career in terms of just having to throw, let alone putting his body on the line by, as big as he is, as strong as he is, having to stay in the pocket and maybe take hits or even get mobile yourself and put yourself at risk for, the knee injuries or the spanking and the pressure and the hitting that you might take by putting yourself out in the field and putting yourself prone to hits from guys. So I think that the trickle down effect of having a good running game is not just one-fold, but 10 or 20-fold.
And I was just looked this up on the Eagles website the other day. They only ran the ball 3 times against Dallas. Sanders twice, Gainwell once, and Sanders had like 2 carries, I think, for 54 yards or something like that. And he's averaging 8.7 a carry this year. But Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff seems to want to scrap the running game. And I think their game plan against Dallas on Monday night was poorly executed. I think it was a poor game plan trying to pass the ball against an improved Dallas defense. And Jalen Hurts might be in his second year, Eric, but he's still a rookie because he's only had now 7 NFL starts. So I know my team has a lot of work ahead of them.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment. My kid is an Eagles fan for what it's worth as well. So we keep an eye on the Eagles in this house, even if it's begrudgingly on my part. And I think your assessment of Hurts is bang on. He is, for all intents and purposes, a rookie, and he's certainly been impressive statistically speaking for him individually over the first few weeks of the season. But at the same time, how much of those stats were kind of in garbage time when the game was out of hand, especially against the Cowboys just a few days ago. And I would almost go with the same assessment to some extent that I said about Josh Allen, even though they're completely different quarterbacks, and Hurts is even more of an athletic runner than perhaps Josh Allen is. I don't think you can rely on the quarterback to have to do anything and everything, especially as a young quarterback, and put the pressure in his hands to be that decision maker in every way, shape, and form, as a thrower, as a runner, as the go-to guy on the offensive end in all ways, shapes, and ways. I think the Eagles, sorry, Chris, I don't know that I don't know if you thought going into the season they were a playoff team. Maybe they are. I certainly don't think they're a Super Bowl contender. But if they're young, which they are, especially at 2 key positions, quarterback and at the receiver position, when you factor in Devontae Smith as well, maybe this is where you should be kind of taking some of your lumps, working out some of your kinks, allowing these young guys to kind of make their way in the league, knowing full well, all right, we're not Super Bowl contenders, so let's go out there, let's see what these guys have got, and let's give them the reps and build on that chemistry so that we truly are in a better position next season and in the seasons to come. And I'm not saying throw up the white flag. I'm saying be a little bit more sort of creative or versatile with what you're doing offensively.
I was going to say I had the Eagles going 9-8 this year, being realistic. I don't know if they could be 9-8, but as you know, Philadelphia is a tough sports town, and there's already talk about Sirianni being over his head, and maybe they should get rid of him and all that. And people panic already. And it's like, it's 1 game, 1 loss, and it's a learning experience. And like I said, it just shows you also, Eric, how hard it is to get to the top of the mountain, because they won the Super Bowl just 3-4 years ago, and how hard it is to maintain that. And even if we dislike the New England Patriots, that dynasty was Brady and Belichick for 20 years. I don't think will ever be done again in the NFL or even in pro sports.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. And you don't have to talk to me about trying to get up that hill, because as a Buffalo Bills fan, you know that we haven't been to the top of that hill. So and the early 90s, 4 straight, as great as that was a hell of a long time ago. And as successful as the Bills were last season, they ultimately weren't in the dance, and they didn't win the whole thing. So we're still trying to get there. I'd rather be an Eagles fan right now, knowing that you at least had that Super Bowl just a few years ago. And even if we talk about it from a Raptors perspective, it was a long time coming for the Raptors, and now as great as that was in 2019, we're a couple of years removed from that, and it's trying to push that big ball up the hill again, and seeing if you can get yourself back into contention. So that's sports, and I guess that's why we sort of have this love-hate relationship again, as fans, as athletes, as coaches, as broadcasters, whatever it may be. That's why I think we love sports, the ultimate reality TV.
Definitely. So, okay. Anyways, I got some questions for you, Eric. I just wanted to ask you a few about how you started out in the industry, and then we'll get to quick thoughts on the Toronto Raptors from last year, and also being back in Toronto after a year and a half being in the bubble, and then last year in Tampa Bay.
Sure. Fire away. Anything you got for me, I'm ready to go.
Okay. Can you just tell my audience a little bit about yourself, and when did you decide you wanted to pursue a career in radio and TV, as you've done both mediums?
I was very lucky at a young age that, like I think a lot of sports fans, boys or girls at a young age decide or get that thought in their head, like, oh, I love sports, I'd love to be a professional athlete. And then you ultimately decide whether you're 10, 12, 15, 18, whatever age it is, where where the reality sets in for probably 99% of the population, if not more than 99%. I'm not good enough to be a professional athlete, or that's not a realistic goal. And I think I just kind of decided fairly young, Chris, that if I can't play sports or be an athlete, well, what else can I do to kind of stay connected to sports? And I just kind of made that decision. Well, heck, it'd be pretty cool to talk about sports or to watch sports or to be on radio or television. And it's simply, as you can attest to, and so many can attest to, either in this career or in any career, it's not that easy. It's not easy enough to just go, this is what I want to do. There's a major element in luck, in everything. And part of the luck too was I was lucky enough at a young age to think I knew what I wanted to do, and to ultimately have it turn out that what I thought I wanted to do not only was ultimately, yes, what I wanted to do, and I was able to do it. So it's kind of that avalanche of things that comes together that unfortunately doesn't come together for a lot of people. I've got, members of my family that are in careers that they have, to my face admitted, I don't like my job, or I don't like what I'm doing, but it pays the bills. But I chose that path. But, there's a lot of buts. I'm very lucky to not have that but. And I'm kind of going off on a bit of a tangent here, Chris, but one of the things, even just thinking about some of the kids in my neighborhood that are late high school or into their first year of college or university, I think it's a very, very, very difficult decision that we put on young kids. And you and I were once there as well. It's a very difficult decision to figure out at 17, 18, 19 years old what it is you're going to do with the rest of your life. And I think that the way that the world has changed as well has kind of set up for, not necessarily for failure for younger generations, but I think it's certainly set up for, you might need to accept the fact that what you decide might not be what you do for 25, 30, 40 years. You might have multiple jobs, multiple careers within a lifetime. You might completely change your field in your quote unquote career. So to put that sort of onus and that pressure on kids at a young age to say, what do you want to do? And what are you going to do for the rest of your life? It's very tough. And that's why I say there's a major element of luck in knowing what you want, or thinking that you know what you want, going and doing it, then actually being able to get a job in that field and still be happy in that field and still find success in that field, etc. It's to me very uncommon. So for me, as I say now, in a long-winded way, I go back to thought I wanted to do this, focused a lot as a result, even in high school, on English classes and more things like history and geography and social studies, as opposed to, I couldn't even tell you the last time I did a math class. I know the basics, but don't ask me to talk about Pythagorean theorem or calculus and things like that. I'm terrible with that stuff. I didn't focus a lot on sciences and maths and whatnot. Again, it was English and a lot of social studies, and applied to colleges and universities, and ultimately went the college route for no other reason than I liked what the colleges were saying about the built-in internships and job placements that they had in a lot. And again, you got to go figure, this is 25 years ago. It's changed over the years. But the built-in internship and co-op placements and whatnot that the colleges had and many universities didn't. And I also like the class sizes being smaller and more hands-on in college versus university. And I like the fact that, no disrespect to any of the professors that are extremely talented and educated out there, but I like the fact that many of the teachers in college were still people that were working in the industry and then teaching on a part-time basis, or recently retired from the industry and now teaching, as opposed to, again, at the time, a lot of university professors that maybe either hadn't worked in the industry or just didn't have the same type of experience or credentials, I felt at least, that I was hearing about when I went to colleges. So 25 years ago, I went the college route. And at the time, there was still that mentality, that BS mentality, that thought process that, oh, well, you only go to college if you can't get into university, or university is much better because you must have a degree and not a diploma. And I think there's probably some people that still feel that way. Again, I think it's bogus. Yes. So I went the college route, went to Humber College, went to the School of Journalism at Humber, did my 3 years, got an internship at the Fan 590, and the rest is history in terms of being fortunate enough to start it as an intern and ultimately get hired as a part-timer, and part-time became full-time. and taking my lumps and learning the ropes and gaining experience as a producer behind the scenes, and getting some on-air time and getting that chance to hone my skills as a reporter, as a host, as an on-air personality. And then ultimately the opportunities that created in the on-air world in terms of covering the Toronto Raptors and as a reporter, and then becoming a host of the pre-half and post-game show. And then again, I mean, we could probably do an entire hour on this one question in terms of where things just sort of came along the way, and the steps that I was able to achieve, I guess, or walk up over the course of 25 plus years in the business now.
Okay, you just answered my second question, but I have a second part to it. So you already mentioned where you went to school. Did you have any mentor or mentors when you were starting out, Eric?
I had a lot of mentors. I will say, prior to going into school, like into college, and then even in college, I mean, listen, I had mentors like we all did when we talk about family members, and certainly teachers and educators throughout high school and college. And I don't mean to diminish the impact that those family members, friends, or educators had on me, but I think your question probably more so is, professionally speaking, mentors. And I was like, Chris, and this is not meant as a name drop. You asked the question. I'm telling you, how lucky was I as a kid in his early 20s to have an internship become a part-time job, become a full-time job. And I'm at the Fan 590 when, like, let me rhyme off some of the names that I was able to learn from and work with, even in my first year, let alone my first 3 years. Bob McCowan, Elliot Friedman, George Strombolopoulos, Gord Stellick, Barb DiGiulio, Spider Jones, Norm Rumack, Scott Ferguson, Howard Berger. I mean, the list goes on, let alone when the career ultimately transitioned even more so into the hosting world and doing radio shows with Bill Hayes and Mike Hogan and Don Landry, Pat Marsden, John Derringer, Jim Lang, all people that have had great success in this industry. And then we transitioned even more so into the Toronto Raptors. And my first true, like, legit on air kind of full time, you're no longer producing, you're no longer working the evenings and whatnot, or the sort of graveyard shifts where you're taking your lumps. I'm put on the Toronto Raptors broadcast, and who am I working with? Chuck Swirsky and Jack Armstrong, and then Paul Jones, and then we fast forward over the course of 10 years, and we're talking about working alongside Jonesy on the broadcast, but then also having the luck, let alone the privilege, to be able to work alongside and still continue to learn from Leo Routens and Matt Devlin. And that's not even including the bosses that I learned from and that were so instrumental in my career, in guys that are legends in the broadcast world, even if a lot of folks don't necessarily know them because they're not on air, but management that are responsible for the rise of sports media, radio and TV in this country. When I think about Nelson Millman and then Chris Clark and Don Collins and Dave Cadeau and Rob Corte and others, Scott Moore, people that I think were absolutely instrumental. And I know I gave you like 20 names, but it's legit. Those are all mentors. If I want to break it down, with no disrespect intended to all of those names, and I apologize to those that I forgot, because there were so many influences, and maybe that's a better word, influences, and not necessarily mentors. But the ones that I worked closely or most closely with in my early stages of my career are probably the ones that had the greatest impact. And even then, I would still throw out at least 4 or 5 names from that list of 25 or so that I gave you. And that would likely be Gord Stellick, who I began working with, Barb DiGiulio, the three of us together working on The Big Show back in the day on the Fan 590. And then obviously Chuck and Jack on the broadcast with them, Jonesy doing the hoop show and the pre and post show and whatnot. Those people, Bill Hayes doing the evening show. Bill Hayes is a guy that is still going to be, until I die, in lockstep with me, with one of my, greatest memories and most unfortunate memories in my career, in terms of hosting a live radio show with Bill on the night of September 11th, on after the attacks on 9/11, and being on the air with him for the weeks that followed. So I've had so many people. I've been so fortunate enough to have so many different individuals impact me, influence me, and help mentor me over the years. And I still continue to be impacted, influenced, and mentored because I feel like I should be. I'm not an expert. I still have to learn, and I don't want to sound cheesy or cliche because I know you've heard people say that before, but I legit mean it. I still work at my craft and try to hone my skills and try to learn. Because if I'm not learning or getting better, or if I'm not diversifying, especially in today's day and age, trying to keep up with radio and television and the web and social media and digital platforms and everything that's coming at you, if you're not learning and diversifying and continuing to try to hone those skills, you're going to get passed by, or you're going to be you're going to be sad that you didn't. You're going to be sorry you did.
Chuck Swirsky I had on my show a month ago. Super nice guy. He said the exact same words as you did, Eric. And that's why I continue to work hard at this and try to get and improve every day, keep learning. And also I'm trying to get feedback from my guests now too, to see what they thought I did well or what I could do better, improve upon. And that's exactly what you said. I can't say it any better than what you said, Eric.
Yeah, you have to, I say that about any walk of life, right? And again, I keep giving the preface of not trying to sound cliche. It's absolutely true. I would say anybody out there right now, I would hope that anybody that's already in their career already knows that they shouldn't be just kicking back and putting their feet up. They should already know that they should be continuing to try to learn and gain more skills. But if anybody out there that's watching that's young, let me just implore again and be absolutely clear. Continue to learn and listen. Learning doesn't necessarily mean going back to school, or it may. It might just mean keeping your ears open, keeping your eyes open, build on contacts, have conversations, ask questions, listen, engage in conversation, be open to criticism, seek out criticism, constructive criticism, and just don't be. Listen, I'll say this strictly from the media world, Chris. You're proving yourself right now, even in just doing this show, that traditionally speaking for radio and television, I didn't have this 25 years ago, let alone 20. Heck, we could probably even argue whether something like this truly even existed 10, even 5 years ago. The ability for young and old, or new or old, journalists or broadcasters or entertainers, or whatever word you want to slap on it, whatever description, the opportunities are so endless right now. Like, I'll tell you, here's another honest thing. I've done, clearly Skype and Zoom and Instagram Live and all. I could name 17 other platforms that I've done video chats on, or blogs and podcasts, whatever else. I've never used StreamYard. So when you sent me this link, it's like, okay, there's another platform I wasn't aware of, something that maybe even I can learn from that. Is this something I might want to utilize one day? No disrespect to StreamYard, never even heard of them. Well, now I just had my eyes open today, and I'm looking at the screen right now. I don't know how much this is StreamYard, how much this is you in terms of the boxes and the font, and like this looks like a television broadcast with the way it's fonted with the graphics and everything. So I'm learning something right now, and this is something that I'll take away and figure, is this something that I can or should or need to apply to my various platforms or my work or whatever. It's just, again, keeping those eyes and ears open and knowing that you don't know it all.
One of my friends, his name is Jamie. He's a Philly sports guy. He paints his face up. You would see him on the NFL Network or on the NFL on CBS. He's been podcasting for a couple years. And when I first started here, it was a basic podcast just on Facebook Live. And the one day he said, "Hey, you want to use StreamYard?" I'm like, "What's StreamYard?" And he got me onto it. He helped me with it. And for the last 6 months, I've been using StreamYard, and it's been great. I can put graphics. And one thing I remember what you told me a year ago, Eric, when you ask questions, make sure you look at the guest. And with this graphics I have, I can do my questions ahead of time I'd like to ask, and then put them on here. And then when I do ask my guest, I can keep my focus on my guest instead of looking down at a piece of paper, because I remember you saying that to me about a year ago.
Yeah, that's I will say, Chris, there's different approaches for everybody. What I say is not necessarily gospel. It's just what worked for me. But the one piece of advice that I often do pass on to, and I used to say to young aspiring, but again, in today's day and age, and maybe I should have never said it, any aspiring journalist of any age, whomever they are, because it doesn't necessarily have to be the young. my advice was, and I'll repeat it, what I said to you was to not, and again, don't take this as criticism because you're still writing it down, which is fine. And the fact that you're essentially using the screen now as a teleprompter, like even in talking to you, Chris, I'm looking at my camera right now. I'm not looking down and reading the screen. You can see my eyes now are looking differently. I'm looking at the camera because I'm trying to make eye contact with you and with the audience. And I think when you're in person, especially, you can find little cheats when you're doing something on camera like this, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you having reminders and your questions written down. But I have not written a question down in my life, or at least not written a question down that I've had with me in person during an interview. And the reason for that is I know going into the interview what I want to talk to that person about. I have the bullet points. I've got little things in my head. I maybe have memorized my first question, or even memorized my 5 or 10 questions, or the topics or the little bullets in my brain. But at the end of the day, I can't rely on that list, because what happens if the guest either A, is terrible and offers little to nothing and gives extremely short, monotone, grumbly answers, and now you not only need 10 questions, you need 20 or 30, and you don't have them because you're staring at your piece of paper and you're lost. Or what happens when in the first or second answer, your guest says something like completely off the rails, whether it's controversial or whether it's just eye-opening, that takes the conversation in a completely different direction. Like, just as an example, Chris, and I'm not saying that you should have gone here by any means. So I'm not saying this about you.
No worries.
What happens, or what would have happened if, for whatever reason, you picked up on what I said about Bill Hayes and 9/11, and the 20-year anniversary of 9/11 was just a few weeks ago. And suddenly now a follow-up question about 9/11 ends up becoming 35 minutes on 9/11, and a podcast or whatever that we thought was going to be about the Toronto Raptors and the Buffalo Bills becomes entirely or almost entirely about 9/11. But it's an engaging, entertaining, enlightening, thought-provoking, emotional conversation. Well, to me, that's just as valid as whatever you thought you were going to do going in. So, and again, I'm just using that as an example of, you never know what somebody's going to say, which might steer the conversation in a completely different direction. And again, I apply a lot of that to just life. You're at a house party, whether it's with 5 people or 50 people, maybe not in COVID times, but just using the greater example. It's just about having conversations, meeting somebody for the first time and striking up a conversation and listening to what they're saying, not just waiting for your chance to talk. And if you're truly listening to what people are saying, you might pick up on things, as opposed to, as I say, waiting for your chance to talk, or from a broadcasting, podcast, journalistic perspective, waiting to get to your second question, because you asked your first, but now you're caught looking down, and what's my second question? Well, maybe the second question doesn't flow now. Maybe the second question should actually be your 7th question, because your 4th question flows better after your first question. You know what I mean? So it's just that sort of quarterback reading the defense, or reading the plays, and being able to audible and navigate over the course of a chat, whether it's for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or an hour, and what flows better, what sounds better, what ultimately becomes a better interview or a better chat. And I think that's where I come from when I give that sort of advice to people about not writing things down, or at least not writing things down when you're in person, so that you're not reliant on that piece of paper.
Definitely. One thing, Eric, to everything, I agree with you on this. I've also learned to ad-lib too, and I've also the listening skills too, because when I first started this, my listening skills weren't, I don't think they were good as now. I would ask questions that the guest already answers. Sometimes the guest already answers 2, 3, 4, 5 questions ahead of time, like yourself today, Eric. I'm now going to jump down to a few more questions too. I think listening skills, and also ad-libbing. I try to not look at this as an interview. It's like me and you talking outside the arena or something like that too.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of thinking, and a great skill to have. And I think that if you can, and I don't just mean you, me, anybody, if you can hone that skill of listening and being attentive and engaging, hopefully, and interested, because a lot of that comes down to also facial expression and body language, because we give off certain vibes,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
If you look monotone and deadpanned and bored, well, you're probably not going to get as much from your guest or from your date or your spouse or your friend or whatever. If you look engaged and interested and that you're hanging on every word and you're sharing the conversation and you feel as though you're being as equally listened to and engaged in, the conversation is going to be better. And I think the point that you bring up, Chris, about ad-libbing, I've never taken an acting class in my life other than back in high school, high school drama classes. But I know some broadcasters, radio and especially TV, might tell you about acting classes and just helping in terms of the personality or the ability to improv or ad-lib, kind of, to me, same thing. But I think my acting or my honing of that skill in terms of improving, ad-libbing, and being able to think and talk on my toes came from decades of experience in radio. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm any better than anybody else on television and that I don't have work to do and ways to improve, as I said 5-10 minutes ago, about just always trying to improve. There are things that I need to be better at in television. But I think one of the things that makes me good on the TV side, or one of the skills that I bring on the TV side, is that there are some people that come up in television that don't have the same improvisational skills that I have. When you have to turn on a microphone and talk for anywhere from 5 to 55 minutes, and your guest, pooches or bails, or your producer can't track that guest down, and you just have to talk live for that time until at least the commercial break and be engaging, and you may not have any calls, you might not have any listeners phoning in or viewers interacting. Again, that's changed the game. Back in the day, again, 10 years ago, but certainly 20 years ago, Chris, you open up the phone lines for a post-game show or on a talk show, if nobody calls in, what are you going to do? You don't have a guest, you don't have a co-host, and nobody's calling in. Then it starts playing with your mind. Is anybody even listening? Am I broadcasting to like 4 people right now? Or are there like 4,000 or 40,000 listening, but just nobody cares to call in? So does that mean I didn't ask a good question? Am I not engaging the audience properly enough? Oh my gosh, if nobody's listening, am I going to get fired? Is the boss going to take me off the air? Am I going to have this show anymore? Will I have this time slot? While your mind's playing with you, you still, oh, by the way, have to be talking and talking for the next 12 minutes till you get to the commercial. So that's just a skill that I was able to hone over the years in terms of that improvisational skill of ad-libbing and talking, and hopefully continuing to be engaging. And it maybe is at a bit of a fault here, because as you see, and as you can tell, 35 minutes into our chat, I can tend to give very long-winded answers. so maybe I'm improving and ad-libbing too much, but I think that skill, to now transfer that into live television, is huge. It's huge to be able to think on your feet and ad-lib like that. But if I flip it now back even to radio or to social media and to podcasting and whatnot like this, that's where today's aspiring broadcasters have even more outlets or opportunities or avenues for interaction at their feet than I would have ever had, or many other people would have had 20 years ago. Because I use the example of the call-in show. Well, now who cares if you get calls? Did somebody send you a tweet? Did somebody put a message up on Instagram? Did somebody send you a direct message? I don't know if they do. Does StreamYard have a live chat function, or one of these platforms?
Yes.
So all of this stuff is ways now to interact. So now my camera goes out right now. My internet connection drops and you're stuck and you don't know when I'm coming back. I'm back in 60 seconds. I'm back in 5 minutes.
Yep.
It's on you to keep the show going. So you have to have those ad-lib skills and be able to think on your toes, which you've proven you can do. But then also, even if you get caught or you're kind of stuck, or you're not even caught and stuck, you think it's maybe a good time to go, hey, let's look in this chat. So-and-so had this to say about the Eagles, about the Bills, or had a question about Eric. Let's engage that. And now that becomes a conversation that, again, you wouldn't have had 20 years ago in radio, when the phone lines might have not have lit up and you're just like staring into the barrel of, oh my God, how do I get to that commercial segment that's 12 minutes away and I have no guests and I have no callers? So today's day and age, I'm not going to say it's easier. It's just there are more tools available to so many that I think it makes it potentially easier. But at the end of the day, it all comes back on you and your ability to think on your feet, ad lib, and just simply do the job.
I've had to do that a number of times, Eric, where a guest has had an emergency or something come up, and I still wanted to come on, and the show has to go on. So I just talk about what I want to talk about,
Yeah.
and if somebody comments, I bring their comment up and I talk that up. And on StreamYard too, when I didn't know how long you were going to be, maybe a few minutes late, I was actually going to show a little video footage of the Raptors championship game against Golden State again, Game 6, just to buy me some time until you got back on here too. But I'm learning all these skills, as you mentioned, Eric, and I'm trying to improve upon it as well.
Well, yeah, I'm always happy to watch that clip. I mean, my other side. Over my shoulder here. That's I mean, that's not the championship, but the shot of Kawhi's obviously infamous shot against the 76ers, and that hangs proudly, and any chance I have to relive the memories of the championship, and having a chance to call that game on the radio, doing the play-by-play for that Game 6, and knowing that, selfishly speaking, that I've got just a little tiny piece of history with my voice calling that first ever championship for the Raptors, and then being in that building and flipping from radio over to television to do some TV post-game work, and being in the locker room and the champagne shower, and actually having the opportunity to hold the trophy about 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours after the Raptors won it. Obviously a career moment that, if it never happens again, I know it happened once, and I'll be able to hang on to that till the day I die. And I would love if it happened again, if it happened 10 more times, but you can never replace that number one.
True. Just like the Pistons in 1989. The number one should have been in 1988, but unfortunately the Lakers stole that finals from the Pistons. I'm still bitter about it. But the first championship of any team is always the most special. And I can relate. You guys won yours 30 years after Detroit won their first one. And the first one is the one that's the most special. They're all special, but the first one is a little extra special.
Yeah, I mean, and for Toronto, first time in Canada, and then of course the parade. 2.5, 3 million people, and having the fortune to be a part of that parade as well, and being on the buses and conducting interviews, and just seeing the throngs, the masses of people. I mean, it was such an incredible run for those 2 months through the postseason, through the initial bump in Game 1 in round 1 against the Magic, and then of course against Philadelphia, and then the conference finals, the comeback after being down 2-0 and in overtime against the Bucks, to then take care of 4 straight, and then to drop the hammer on the Warriors in the finals, and like I say, to win the championship, and then the parade, and then of course even just not even getting a chance to necessarily celebrate it for even a month. It was less than a month later, boom, free agency hits, and Kawhi Leonard's gone, and it just the emotional roller coaster of those 3 or 4 months, the highs and the lows, was incredible. And as I say, it's clearly something that will never be forgotten, and is just kind of etched into my brain and into my memory forever.
I was going to say, do you have about 3 or 4 more minutes? I can just get a couple more questions in quick.
Yeah,
ones.
I mean, I've got at least, I got at least 15 if you want. I can probably go till 11. Okay. And in fact, I was 3 minutes late, so I can go to 11:03. I'll give you the full hour if you need it. You let me know.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I always try to ask my guests ahead of time what their time length is. Some 20 minutes, some 30 minutes, some an hour. I always like to try to accommodate my guests. If it's 20 minutes, then I just try to keep my questions and that to ones I really want to ask. So, okay.
Well, I know I'm long-winded as well, so I probably killed a lot of your time. So I apologize for that. So.
Okay. Yeah, Eric, next one I wanted to ask you. Do you remember your first game as the Raptors play-by-play voice, and your first game doing color analyst? And you already answered the last part, what it was like being part of the championship team. So I just really wanted to ask you, you remember your first game doing the Raptors radio?
I definitely do remember my first game doing Raptors radio. And it was, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit on your question. The first game that I ever did on radio was way back in the day. And to be honest with you, I can't even give you the date. I probably should know the date, but it was Vince Carter on NBC, and it was the first game that the Raptors ever had on NBC. And I actually did color with Chuck Swirsky, because Jack Armstrong was working a college basketball game for, I think, ESPN or ESPN2. And he had a scheduling conflict and wasn't able to do that game. And Chuck was going to go solo. And he said to a very young, very inexperienced up-and-comer who was doing pre-half and post, why don't you throw on the headset and essentially do color for me, and we'll do the broadcast together. And that was incredible of Chuck to just give me that chance. So technically speaking, that was my first ever time on the broadcast in a role beyond just pre and post. And it was Vince going for 50 plus on NBC. And if I'm not, I'm almost 99% sure that was against the Phoenix Suns. But in terms of with Jonesy, when I actually became, one of the team broadcasters and doing the broadcast with Jonesy and doing color for, I believe 8 or 9 years, and now it's been play-by-play for 7 or 8. I've honestly lost. COVID has killed my memory. The pandemic, in terms of, is this year 8, 9? Is it year 18 or 19 overall? I've honestly, Chris, I've lost track. I literally have to open up a book and count the years to know, how long it's been. But the first time with Jonesy, ironically speaking, was also, again, before he and I were officially together. And it was on a fill-in type basis. And it was, guess what, against the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix. And I've posted the picture a couple of times of Jonesy and I together standing at center court. And he's got a little bit more hair and I've got a lot more hair. And we've both got really bad oversized suits. And we both look baby faced. But that was the first time, in terms of being on the road and calling a road game and working alongside Jonesy. And we've been together in some way, shape, or form on broadcast or radio shows for 20 years now. And I have, not that those firsts weren't important and weren't milestones, don't get me wrong, clearly, they are hugely important. But I've noticed over the years that my photographic memory is not anywhere near as photographic as Swirsky's is and as Jonesy. Jonesy can tell you, Jonesy can tell you about the 7th hole on the course that he played at 17 years ago in like Alliston, Ontario, or in Orlando, Florida. And he'll have like a complete paint the picture memory of the holes he's played, let alone basketball games and situations, whatever else. I don't know if I need to get my head checked, but my memory for a lot of stuff is terrible in terms of where I was or what I did, except for obviously the huge moments. Like, if I twist your question into, not just the career first, but the career moments. We already talked about the championship, but sitting courtside in Los Angeles and calling Kobe Bryant's 81-point performance against the Raptors, it's kind of a huge deal. And that was in my first season working with Jonesy. So as much as maybe game 1 was a thrill, well, whatever game that was that year, game 32 or whatever it was in January against the Lakers, especially as a kid who grew up a Laker fan, Magic Johnson just behind me, to be able to be in Los Angeles, literally less than 10 feet to the left of the Lakers bench, on the floor, courtside, calling Kobe Bryant scoring 81. How am I going to top that beyond, topping it with the championship, 20 years later or whatever? So there've been so many career moments, and I've been so fortunate and hope to continue to be fortunate and have many more.
Have you ever thought about writing a book in the future?
I have. I think part of me wonders how interested people would actually be, to be honest with you. And I don't mean to be self-deprecating, but I guess that's kind of just my getting into my own head. Like, would people really care? Would I have enough material? But it has crossed my mind about writing a book, and I've even kicked myself in terms of not writing a book already, having the foresight to go, I wonder about maybe doing a book on a year in the life, and then somebody else ends up writing that book. Or had I in 2019 said, Kawhi Leonard and the Raptors, this could be a pretty good team, or even at the halfway point going, all right, this is a good team, and man, this could be a championship team. Maybe I should start taking more notes, and maybe I could write a book. And of course I didn't, and many others did. So maybe that's on me for not being proactive enough or having the foresight enough to think of stuff like that. But it's something that I would definitely think about doing, and I don't know if it's when I retire or while I'm still working, but I'm hoping to not retire for a hell of a long time. And because I'll tell you, this is the other thing, Chris, and it speaks again to my fortune. And I promise you, I don't say this with a shred of arrogance or ego or whatever else. I'm proud of the fact that I've worked hard and I've worked my backside off to get to this point. And I think I've found ways to morph and diversify myself over the course of now, 3 decades, 25. My 25-year anniversary will be coming up in January. And that's something that I'm very proud of, to think that I started in the industry in the late 90s and we're now in 2021 and almost in 2022. So over the span of 3+ decades, but over the course of 25 years in this industry, there is, again, a major element of luck in terms of opportunities that are presented in all walks of life. But luck also runs out. And at some point, hard work and simply skill and ability to get the job done, again, in all walks of life, does become paramount and does become the determining factor. Who you know does matter sometimes. You may get a job because of who you know, but I would bet you're not keeping that job if you don't perform. Whether you're out in a year, whether you're out in a decade, at some point it's going to catch up if you're not working hard, if you're not performing, if you're not continuing to diversify your skills and improve your skills and everything else. So again, I say without a shred of ego, I acknowledge for the 4th or 5th or 10th time the element of luck, but also I'm proud that I've worked hard and I found ways to diversify myself and improve the skill set where I can be on radio, I can be on television, I can tackle social media, I can talk about other sports and not just be honed in on one thing or be a one-trick pony. And sort of, some people might say master of many, expert of none. I think it's better to be diverse and to be that sort of Swiss Army knife that can do a lot of things, because especially in today's business, I can tell you, having the ability to be multi-platform, multi-dimensional, to be able to do a lot of different things is only going to serve you well. And that's where I say, as much as I don't want to retire for a long time and hope to not retire or have to worry about writing that book for a long time, I'm only in my mid-40s. Even though I've 25 years in the business, I'm only in my mid-40s. Hell, I still think and hope that I'm working for 20 more years, but am I going to be able to work for 20 more years? I hope so. Well, then it's going to be on me to continue to keep up with technology, keep up with trends, continue to learn. Otherwise, I will get passed by, and I might be 50 in X number of years, in 4 or 5 years. And people will be like, oh, he's only 50. Well, yeah, but he worked in the business for 30 years. Well, hell, I'm only 50. I still want to work for 10 or 15 years. So you've got to continue to learn and build on the skills that you have and create and cultivate new ones.
And also have a passion too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Good point.
Exactly. Whatever you said, Eric, Chuck Swirsky just said a month ago, and Jerry Howers, who I was been lucky enough to talk to, said the same thing. And I've been very lucky because I never thought a year and a half ago I would be able to get people like yourself and Chuck and Dan Shawman and Jerry Howers and Bob Sochi and everybody in your profession has been really great with me, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I mean, listen, no thanks necessary, but I appreciate you saying that. And I think that it's incredible on you, and it shows your work ethic and the sort of go get attitude to be able to track these people down and to get them and then to have these conversations and to present this to your audience and whatnot. So it's, that speaking of hard work and whatever, you're clearly proving it with what you're doing and the contacts you've been able to cultivate, create, and have conversations with. So kudos to you, because that's the names you just threw out, and removing myself from the list, those are some of the greats in the industry, and certainly not just locally in Toronto and in Canada, some of the greats across broadcasting overall. And I'm sure that there are many podcasts and whatnot out there that don't have maybe the guest list that you do. So it's kudos to you for being able to track a lot of those people down and have them come on your show.
It's hard work, passion, and this is something I really want to do, and I just have to keep grinding away, as Chuck would say, grinding away every day at it and building my contacts up and trying to improve my skill sets as well.
Chris, I don't know. I heard what you said, but you sounded like a transformer there. So I don't know if your microphone messed up or if mine did. But it was like I was getting somebody from another dimension, from another planet for a second there. But I was. Oh, and it's still happening. I don't know if it's. I don't know if it's your microphone or mine, but something just out of the blue went haywire there. But I know you were talking about just building on that skill set and taking that advice from people, and that's kind of been the theme and the tone of our conversation for almost an hour now. And it's good on you for doing that, for having these conversations, and again, not just presenting something hopefully entertaining to your viewers and to your listeners, but it's also serving a dual purpose of hopefully helping you individually, let alone helping so many people that are watching, to again not hopefully just entertain, but to maybe educate a little bit as well, and people that watch back that are that can take, again, I've referenced a few times, I think, Chris, in our conversation, is even if you're watching this and you're just a sports fan, but you're a lawyer or you're a business person or you work in sanitation or you got a part-time job serving coffee, whatever the hell it is, there are skills and lessons that we can all learn from each other that we can apply in our own lives or in our own profession. So it doesn't matter if you're not an aspiring broadcaster watching this. I'm sure something that we've said or whatever you can apply in your own life, let alone hopefully entertained you with some actual sports stories or memories as well.
And 80% of my podcast is sports, but now I'm also branching out and getting people that are comedians, actors, TV reporters, and because I like to talk to different people from different industries and learn from them as well, and branch out a little bit more too.
That's great. It's kind of what I was just touching on. I think that the ability to learn from a lot of different people, that's something that I like. At the end of the day, again, going back to the radio roots, and maybe, well, I mean, this, I guess, could include Sportsnet and the TV side of things, but more so on the radio side. One of the things that I've felt for a long time is just I like sort of looking at things in terms of pop culture as opposed to just sports. And I think back in the day, right, wrong, or otherwise, a lot of the bosses wanted to say, no, we are a sports station. We will talk sports. And listen, I'm not here to say the bosses are wrong. I think that there have been more people willing to look with a wider lens in today's generation, because I think we recognize now that as much as sports fans want to hear sports talk, I think they also are willing to or wanting to also see personalities outside of just the sports. So what does their athlete like to do in his or her free time? What do they like to watch on television or at the movies? You know, what other hobbies do they have? What are their opinions on pop culture, on music, on political, on social events, on using their platform, their voice to speak out or speak alongside or to be an advocate for, etc. And to me, that then broadens the horizon of the conversation that you as a broadcaster can have with the athletes, with the coaches, with whomever you're having on the air. Because again, there's more than just the stats. There's more than just what happens, but between the lines. And I think getting to know people's lives and what makes them tick helps maybe formulate your opinion of somebody, pro or con, in terms of who they are as an athlete or as a coach or as a broadcaster or as an interviewer, as a whatever. So if you can have those conversations with lots of different people from lots of different walks of life, I can tell you that, again, I don't know if this is cliche or if it's just sort of one of these old adages that maybe isn't true, but we'll often say kind of in this type of industry, like, athletes seem to love to talk about music and musicians love to seem to talk about sports. Well, I think that's just kind of a jumping off point or an example of, I would argue, maybe, again, not to sound too pie-eyed here and too fluffy about it, I think that's just kind of life in general. Like, I don't know about you, Chris, you're clearly a huge sports fan. You love sports, but do you want every conversation you have to be about sports? Or would you like to have a conversation about politics or the weather or, handiwork or yard work or travel or whatever it may be? Like, I know for me, and I don't want to, hopefully this doesn't come across, like an a-hole or like I'm being jerky, but sometimes if I'm at a party with family or friends that I know, let alone with a complete stranger, somebody knows I work in sports or I work at the Raptors, it's like every conversation I have then is about the Raptors or the NBA or sports. And I don't hate that, because at the end of the day, as I've said many times in this conversation, I'm very fortunate and lucky to be doing what I'm doing and have done what I've done for so long. So I respect the fact that if somebody especially is meeting for me for the first time or having a conversation with me for the first time, it's only natural they're going to want to talk to me about the Raptors or about the NBA. And that, again, I'm not begrudging it. I'm just looking, again, bigger picture, or maybe it's more on a personal level where I'm in my personal time where I would love to, let's talk Raptors, let's talk NBA. But you know what? Hey, what do you do? Tell me about your job. Tell me about things in your life. Hey, what about the latest? Hey, did you see this show? Hey, did you whatever? And can we have a conversation that's not just about this? Because we are more, all of us are more than just our job. All of us are. Like, my best friend is a lawyer. He's a corporate lawyer. He's a partner at his firm. We get together We barely talk sports, and I don't know a damn thing about the law, so I barely ask him about his job. Plus, he also has, clauses and whatnot that he can't be talking about cases and clients and this and that, whatever. So I can't even ask him half the questions that I might even want to ask. So we get together. I'm telling you, I don't know the last sporting event I was even at with him. So not only does he not talk sports with me, he doesn't even care to watch sports a whole lot. So not only not going to a sporting event, I don't even think we really watch it much on TV, but we find other things to talk about because we know that we both, and again, that's my best friend, but still, we know that we each have more to offer in life as human beings and have opinions on life and things happening in our lives as husbands and fathers and friends and sons and whatever than just our jobs. It just so happens that, again, I'll say for the 19th time, I'm just one of the guys that's lucky enough to have a job that is a lot of people's spare time, hobby, fun time, but it's my career. So I'm very lucky to be able to do what a lot of people do after they come home from their jobs and put their feet up. And I respect that. That's why I'll always have the sports conversation, but I also love having conversation beyond just sports as well.
And just recently, I had a couple of meteorologists from Arizona and Cleveland on talking about weather, hurricanes, earthquake, and all that stuff. And that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast too. Eric, I love sports, obviously, but I'm also trying to branch out a little bit more and learn other things too. And what you just said, I can't say any better than what you did.
Yeah, I'll tell you, just as a quick little side, if my wife was listening or if she watches this later or something, she can attest to the fact I'm a weather nerd when it comes to stuff like that. So maybe I got to go back and watch those ones, Chris, because if I'm not talking about sports, I'm often pulling up. Oh, hey, it's going to be 18 degrees today, but they say it's 22 with the humidex, and tomorrow's going to be 14. You know why that's happening? Oh, because the cold front's coming in, and the cold front hits the warm front, and that's what creates the moisture and the rain. So there's a greater chance of rain. And she's just looking at me like, what? Why are you? Who cares? I'm like, man, I don't know. I just love weather, so I love stuff like that. And again, it speaks to you, and kudos to you for, again, I don't want to sound repetitive, diversifying yourself and keeping your body and brain open to different perspectives, different topics and whatnot. Because Chris, I don't know where you hope to take this one day. If you want to work in television or radio, or if you're happy doing this and carving out your own little niche in the social media world, the internet world, and monetizing this, and maybe it takes off even more than a television career would with advertisers and sponsors and everything else and whatnot. But maybe that weather conversation ultimately, elevates you or instigates you or motivates you to maybe seek out a weather job or more training in that. And you're a meteorologist in 2 years. Like, who knows where things go, or something that somebody says that, again, you can apply to your other walks of life, or even just your personal life, or just your life in general. So it's having conversations with people and learning about different perspectives, to me, is never a bad thing.
Okay. And I was just going to ask you one last question, just quickly, because I know you got to get down to the practice facility in Toronto. Final thoughts quickly on the 2020-21 Raptors, and briefly Kyle Lowry signing with the Miami Heat after many years in Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate to see him go, but I think it was kind of understandable in terms of the sort of path, the projection for his final few years in the league, let alone where the Raptors are at currently. I think that there's no denying he'll be a Raptor forever. He'll be a lifetime Raptor. I think his jersey not only should, but I think it absolutely will hang in the rafters at Scotiabank Arena one day. That number 7 will be there. In fact, he might be the first one retired. Unless they do Vince Carter before Kyle, then Kyle's probably going to be the first one. And it's absolutely, absolutely deserving. And I wish him nothing but the best down in Miami. But clearly, I hope that 3-4 times a year when they play, I hope that the Raptors beat up on the Heat and he gets no goodwill against Toronto. I think this team, there's no denying, Chris. Like I'd be lying, I'd be disingenuous if I sat here and said they're on paper. And again, this is all on paper. Who knows how it plays out? It could play out incredibly well and beyond everybody's dreams and expectations. It could underperform and fall flat. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Vegas doesn't know. You don't know. I don't know. No quote unquote expert knows how this is going to play out. But on paper, are they as talented 1 through 15 as they were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago? No. I mean, certainly not as talented on paper as they were during their championship run. But do they lack talent? Is there no talent on the roster? Absolutely not. There's talent on this roster. There is good talent on this roster. There's all-star talent on this roster. And I think that there is versatility, there is athleticism, there is defense. And for a coach like Nick Nurse, with his creativeness on both ends of the floor, and with the championship pedigree that you have with your core players in Van Vliet and Siakam, and even Anunoby, who didn't really play in that playoff, that championship run, but was there to experience it and soak it in. Factoring in that defense, that versatility, that athleticism that I speak of, with whether it be a Chris Boucher or a rookie in Scotty Barnes, or the veteran leadership that they have in Goran Dragic, who's almost become a forgotten piece in that Kyle Lowry deal. Forever long as Dragic is here, whether it's for half a season or for the whole season, he will be an impactful player for this team. I think there's every reason to think that the Raptors should be a playoff team this year. This, to me, is not a team that's bottoming out and that's going to be in the bottom 3-4 teams in the Eastern Conference. I think they absolutely should be going into the season thinking, hey, even if we are in a top 4 seed, we're not there maybe alongside the Bucks and the Nets, and I guess, are we still putting the Sixers up there?
What about the Knicks? The Knicks?
I don't know if I see the Knicks in the top 3, but maybe. Either way, I don't know that they're in that upper echelon, but they're in the playoff conversation, in my opinion. And I'm not just saying sliding in, hoping to just eke by and get into the 8th seed. I think the Raptors have every reason to think and believe that they should be a playoff team this year. And I do not see them as, an 11, 12, 13 seed in this conference. I really don't. And if I'm wrong, I'll come on here and I'll admit I was wrong. But as of September 29th, I do not see them being the type of club that completely bottoms out. I think they're going to be a tough out on most nights for most teams in the league, and they're going to be a scrappy team. And I think that's going to make them difficult to beat on most nights.
Okay. Eric, I was going to let you go, but I just want to say, where can my audience find you again on social media if they'd like to ask you some questions or follow you on your social media pages?
The best place to get me is, it's the only place to get me on all platforms. It's actually 2 underscores. There's so many damn Eric Smiths in the world. I have such a plain name, and it is my real name, by the way. This isn't some made-up broadcast name. My legal name from the time I was a baby popped out is Eric Smith. So it is what it is. And there's so many Eric Smiths or so many Smiths in the world that I had to go with the 2 underscores. So you can get me at Eric _Smith. So Eric __ Smith. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and I actually just signed up. No dancing will be involved, but I did just put myself up on TikTok earlier this week. So Eric __ Smith on those 3 platforms, on Twitter, Instagram, and now TikTok as well. So you'll be able to find me anywhere.
I just finally joined TikTok as well, just for my Eagle rants on games and stuff, and promote my podcast as well. And also, people can listen to Smith and Jones on the Fan 590 Monday to Friday, 1 to 2 p.m. Correct?
Well, I hate to break the news, or maybe I should break the news just to keep people informed, but that show is no longer. It was a COVID fill-in, and it was kind of a I don't know if it's fair to call it a stopgap. It was just sort of like, hey, we got a couple of guys sitting on the side and I don't see this arrogantly, a couple of talented broadcasters. Let's put them on the air and see if we can spell off some of our other hosts that are, working and grinding during the pandemic. And we did the show for 14 months, but as the world has kind of gotten to at least a little bit closer to normal again, and certainly the sports world has, with the NHL coming back, with the NBA coming back, with full seasons, with games in Toronto, in Canada, the decision was made that Smith and Jones, as much as people hopefully enjoyed the show and we enjoyed doing it, I hope I'm not speaking out of turns. I think Hockey Central is going to go back to 2 hours, or just the way that the lineup's going to be shifted going forward. And also factoring in that, in all likelihood, if we're traveling with the Raptors this year, how much would we have missed with the show, or our ability to do the show in the middle of a very busy NBA season, et cetera, et cetera. So the decision was made to kind of say thanks, but we always knew it was going to end. We didn't know it was going to end after 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, turned into 14, but we're not doing it anymore. But we are going to be doing on and maybe this is exclusive to you, Chris. I don't know how exclusive and earth-shattering and news-breaking this news is, but the Smith and Jones show is going to live now as a weekly show. They just have not determined yet when it's going to air, whether it's Thursdays at 7 or Sundays at 1 p.m. or whatever, but we are going to do a weekly show, and that is either going to be in lieu of or in addition to the hoop show, the weekly NBA show that we've done for over 20 years. So Jonesy and I, between the broadcasts and now one or two of these shows, let alone the content that we provide on social media, on TV, and otherwise, we're not going anywhere. We're still going to be around a lot. We just don't have that daily 1 hour, I suppose.
Okay. Hey, again, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know with the training camp going on and stuff like that, I really appreciate it. And I'm hoping maybe in the future, maybe I can have you come back on again in the future and maybe talk about your favorite music and some of your other hobbies and stuff as well, and favorite restaurants to eat when you're on the road in the NBA cities.
All right, Chris. Well, I appreciate you having me, and thanks for having me on this. And for anybody watching or listening, I appreciate you tuning in as well. All the best to you.
You too. Thanks a lot, Eric. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Bye. Anyways, guys, I just want to say thanks again to Eric Smith, the radio play-by-play announcer for the Toronto Raptors, coming on today. I really appreciate him taking this time out of his busy schedule because he's going to head down to Toronto this afternoon for Raptors training camp that just started the other day as well. So, and also, guys, you can also follow him on Twitter at Eric_Smith, and you can also check him out on Instagram as well. Like I said, guys, before I go, I'm just going to let you know I do have another podcast today at 3 o'clock. And just give me 1 second. I'm just going to put this gentleman's name up on here. And my second podcast today will be at 3 o'clock. Greg Sloan, the longtime TV play-by-play announcer for the Ontario Hockey League's London Knights on Rogers TV in London, will come on at 3 o'clock this afternoon to talk about his career with Rogers TV and also the London Knights and what he expects from the return of the OHL and the 2021-22 London Knights as well. So I just want to thank everyone who watched this on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and also, guys, if you want to, you can listen to this later on audio. Like I said, after Live with CDP podcast, the audio version is always on Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, and my LinkedIn page as well. And I'm hoping to have a website up by the end of the year as well. And just also, guys, you can also follow me on TikTok as well. Just 1 second here. You guys can follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. That's at Live with CDP on TikTok. So I hope you guys can all tune in today at 3 o'clock again for my next podcast with Greg Sloan from the London Knights. And before we go, guys, I'm just going to play a little clip of the Raptors winning the championship again against the Golden State Warriors in 2019 in honor of my guest, Eric, for coming on here today again. 1 second, guys. I'm just going to play this.
Toronto will get possession. Even though Green had possession when he called timeout, you lose possession with the excessive timeout. Now they just have to inbound the ball, and the celebration will be underway.
And it should be a celebration both ways. This is the last time at Oracle Arena. And if I'm in this crowd, I'm standing and appreciating what this team has done.
Lowry has it. Throws it into Leonard. That's it. It's over. The Raptors win. There's a new NBA. Oh, they call a foul. Leonard saying the ball should go in. As some of the fans now heading for the exits. The celebration already underway at Scotiabank Arena. It says 0-0 on the clock.
They called the foul as the ball was being released in. So,
which would be an away from the play foul.
Now the ball was already in flight. I think when they called the foul, I think they called it right there.
Leonard put it up and in. He wants the basket to count. Not that it matters. The Toronto Raptors, a terrific team all season long. Second best record in the NBA. A new coach, a new star. A number of new players. All season long, you knew they were a good team. But in the East, it was teams like Boston and Milwaukee and Philadelphia that were the more popular picks to get to the finals. But Toronto just kept getting better and better all season long. Led by the brilliance of Kawhi Leonard. And here they are, about to be crowned NBA champions.
And the 2-point guard for Toronto, 48 combined points.
Fred VanVleet, 22 points, 12 of them in the fourth quarter.
Showed true grit and toughness this entire series.
And how about Kyle Lowry, 26 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds, the longest tenured Raptor. He was such a part of all the tortured playoff history this team has had, often at the hands of LeBron James and the Cavaliers. This year, getting to play in his first NBA Finals, and here in the clincher with a spectacular performance.
And Mike, how about Kawhi Leonard? Folks took their shots at him. Folks questioned him. They questioned his competitive spirit, how healthy he was. He didn't have to defend himself with words. He decided to do it with his actions and his play on the court. And he has turned this franchise into a champion.
It was a bold move, a bold trade by Masai Ujiri, because he is an unrestricted free agent.
Everybody scoot back. Scoot back.
And their chance, the Warriors, is make one, miss the second, throw it in. And that's why I'd have Steph Curry on the free throw line.
Well, Leonard could seal it at the line as he hits the first.
You know it's over, right?
Yes.
You're still coaching.
Crowd still here hoping for a miracle. Also here to cheer on. Leonard makes it official. Now the Warriors just inbound, and that's it. There's a new NBA champion, and it's a team from Toronto, Canada. We, the North, are now we, the champions. The Raptors, the 2019 NBA champs.
Anyways, guys, just a little highlights from the 2019 NBA Finals, where the Raptors won their first championship against the Golden State Warriors at the last ever game at the Oracle Arena in Oakland. Now they play across the bay in San Francisco as well. All right, guys, I got to call it a show, but we'll see you guys this afternoon at 3 o'clock with Greg Sloan, the longtime TV play-by-play announcer for the London Knights on Rogers TV in London. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you guys at 3 o'clock. Thank you again for watching Live with CDP and later listening to Live with CDP on audio as well. Take care, guys. We'll see you at 3 o'clock. Thank you.